Let me start by asking you a question. Have you ever wondered if something is legal but still feels wrong? Or something that is right but not accepted by society? That is exactly what we are going to talk about today. Social and political ethics. This field of ethics explores how people, groups, and governments should behave toward one another in society. It deals with big ideas like justice, equality, human rights, authority, and the common good.
Now, this isn't just about theory. This is about real life. Think about issues we hear every day, like racism, same-sex marriage, prostitution, death penalty, war, and even corruption. These are not just about topics. They are ethical dilemmas. Why? Because they involve conflicts between values like freedom versus security, equality versus tradition, and justice versus mercy. So the real challenge is this: what is the right thing to do when values clash? And more importantly, who gets to decide?
To better understand these issues, we need to look at their background. Social and political ethics are shaped by history, culture, and laws. For example, many of today's problems, like racism, did not just appear overnight. They are rooted in past systems like slavery and colonialism. At the same time, political ethics focuses on how leaders make decisions and how governments use their power. It asks questions like, are leaders being fair enough? Are they accountable? Are they serving the people or themselves? Let's quickly walk through some key issues. Racism, judging people based on race, leading to inequality and injustice. Same-sex marriage, a debate between human rights and traditional beliefs. Prostitution, it is a personal choice or a form of exploitation. Death penalty, is it justice or a violation of the right to life? War and violence, can violence ever be justified? Corruption, abuse of power that destroys trust in leadership. These issues are everywhere, in news, politics, and even in our communities. And this is why ethics matters, because decisions here affect real people's lives.
Let's begin with consequentialism. This framework focuses on outcomes. It asks, does this action produce the greatest good for the greatest number? Now, let's apply this to the 6 issues. First is racism. Clearly unethical because it creates inequality, division, and suffering. Same-sex marriage. Supported because it promotes happiness, equality, and inclusion. Prostitution. Depends on the situation. Acceptable if it brings economic benefit and autonomy, but wrong if it involves exploitation or harm. Death penalty depends on effectiveness. If it deters crime, it may be justified. If not, it is unethical. Next is war and violence. May be justified if it prevents greater harm, but unethical if it leads to massive destruction. Corruption, always unethical because it harms society and benefits only a few. So, in consequentialism, the focus is always on result and impact.
Now, let's move to deontology. This framework is based on rules and moral duties. It asks, is this action right or wrong, regardless of the outcome. Applying these to the 6 issues. Racism, always wrong because it violates human dignity and equality. Same-sex marriage, supported if equality is considered a moral duty, though some may oppose based on traditional rules. Prostitution, often considered wrong because it may treat people as objects rather than as persons. Death penalty, generally rejected because it violates the right to life. War and violence, only acceptable under strict conditions like self-defense. Harming innocent people is always wrong. Corruption, always wrong because it violates honesty, fairness, and responsibility. So in deontology, the focus is doing what is morally right no matter the consequences.
Now let's move to the third framework, virtue ethics. This approach focuses on character. It asks, what would a good and moral person do? Applying this to the issues like racism, rejected because it shows lack of compassion and justice, same-sex marriage, supported through empathy, respect, and inclusivity, prostitution, evaluated based on whether it promotes dignity or reflects exploitation, death penalty, judged based on whether it reflects justice, wisdom, and mercy. War and violence should be guided by wise and responsible leadership. And lastly, corruption, rejected because it reflects greed, dishonesty, and lack of integrity. So, virtue ethics reminds us that ethics is not just about decisions, it's about who we are as people.
Now, let's move to the one of the most important parts of our discussion, the comparison of ethical perspectives. At this point, we already understand that there are three major frameworks: the consequentialism, which focuses on outcomes, deontology, which focuses on moral rules and duties, and virtue ethics, which focuses on character. But the big question is, do these frameworks always agree on what is right and wrong? The answer is, not always.
Each framework asks a different question when faced with an ethical issue. Consequentialism asks, will this action produce the greatest good for the greatest number? Then, the deontology asks, is this action morally right regardless of the outcome? And then, virtue ethics asks, what would a good and morally upright person do? Because of these differences, they can arrive at different conclusions, especially in complex issues where values conflict.
Despite their differences, there are three situations where all three frameworks actually agree. Corruption. All three frameworks strongly reject corruption. Consequentialism. Corruption leads to poverty, inequality, and loss of public trust. It harms the majority. Deontology. It violates moral duties like honesty, fairness, and accountability. Virtue ethics. It reflects negative traits like greed, dishonesty, and a lack of integrity. So even if the reasoning is different, they all conclude corruption is unethical. The same is true for racism. Consequentialism, racism causes harm, division, and inequality. Deontology, it violates human dignity and equal respect. Virtue ethics, it reflects injustice, intolerance, and lack of compassion. Again, all frameworks agree racism is morally wrong.
Now, this is where things get more complex. In controversial issues, the frameworks often disagree because they prioritize different values. First is death penalty. The death penalty is one of the most debated issues. Consequentialism may support if it deters crime and protects society, but reject if it leads to wrongful executions. Deontology generally reject it because it violates the fundamental rights to life. Virtue ethics evaluates whether it reflects justice, fairness, and compassion. Some may support it, others may not. This shows a conflict between justice, human rights, and societal protection. Second is same-sex marriage. This issue reflects tension between equality and tradition. Consequentialism supports it because it promotes happiness and equality. Deontology may support it. Equality is moral duty, but some interpretation based on traditional rules may oppose it. Lastly is virtual ethics. Generally supports it through compassion, respect, and inclusivity. The disagreement comes from different interpretations of moral values and cultural beliefs. War and violence. War presents serious ethical dilemmas. In consequentialism, may justify war, it prevents greater harm or protects a nation. In deontology, allows war only under strict moral rules such as self-defense. Harming civilians is always wrong.
Virtue ethics focuses on character and judgment of leaders, emphasizing wisdom and responsibility. This reflects the tension between practical necessity and moral limitations. Fourth is the prostitution. This issue highlights differences in how freedom and dignity are understood. Inconsequentialism may accept it if it's bring benefit and no harm, but reject if its exploitation is involved. And deontology often reject if it treats people as mere means rather than ends. Virtue ethics evaluates whether it promotes dignity, self-respect, and moral being. This disagreement arises from different views on autonomy, dignity, and harm.
Looking at all these comparisons, we can see something important. Consequentialism is flexible and focuses on results, but it can sometimes ignore individual rights. Deontology protects rights and provides clear rules, but it can be too rigid. Virtue ethics focuses on moral character, but it lacks clear guidelines for decisions. So, what does this tell us? This is no single framework that can solve all ethical problems perfectly. And that is exactly why people and even governments often disagree on social and political issues. But at the same time, these frameworks help us understand different perspectives, think critically, and make more informed decisions.
So after analyzing the issues and ethical frameworks, our stand is this.
No single framework is enough on its own. Each has strengths, so the best approach is to combine all three.
From consequentialism, we consider the impact of our action on the society.
From deontology, we protect human rights and follow moral principles.
From virtue ethics, we promote good character like honesty, compassion, and integrity.
Using this approach, society should promote equality and eliminate discrimination,
Protect human dignity and rights,
prevent corruption through accountability,
make responsible decisions in issues like war, death penalty, and social policies.
At the same time, we must balance freedom with responsibility, making sure our actions do not harm others.
And most importantly, we need ethical leaders who serve the common good, not personal interests.
In conclusion, social and political ethics helps us understand complex issues in society and guides us in making better decisions. And by using different ethical frameworks, we see that there is no simple answer, but there is a better way to decide what is right. It requires balance, critical thinking, and respect for human dignity.
So, in the end, the question is,
Are we choosing what is easy?
Or what is right?
Thank you and God bless.